Daryl here. The channel is Programming in Any Language. The supporting website is www.black-duck.com. You find the videos and PDFs of the code there in most cases. The video is structures. Imagine you're writing a program that would keep track of every baseball player in the National American Leagues. And imagine that you would want those players to be easily accessible by team. What you could do is set up a player structure. That structure will contain variables such as name, age, runs, hits, errors, and so on. Now, once you have that structure created, you could create an array of players with a structure for each team in both leagues. The Brewer structure would be an array of Brewer players. The Cubs structure would be an array of Cubs players. In fact, every club would have their own structure. And all the name, stats, and whatever you were tracking would be there because each structure would contain identical variables. In fact, you wouldn't have to declare those variables for each team. Just by using the structure, you'd be able to access all those variables for every team. The video you're about to see does this and keeps it simple. In the video, we will set up a person structure. Then we'll write a program that allows us to capture customer data and employee data, all using that same structure. The whole idea here is to set up your variables just once and use them for groups that are similar without having to set up the variables over and over again. That makes much more sense when you see it. Let's get started. Structures allow you to encapsulate several variables into a single item. You can group several variables together into a single item known as a structure. It allows you to create custom data types for your programs. Each variable in a structure is known as a field. Fields in a structure can be of different data types. And the generic form to declare a structure in C# is struct, structure name, public, then your field declarations go in there, all your variables. Where struct is a keyword, public is the access modifier. You can declare a structure outside the application's namespace, inside the application's namespace. You can also do it inside a class or inside another structure. So structures can contain structures. Let's take a look at, let's say you're writing an application that needs information about people. And if you need to collect that information about people, you might need the following variables. A first name, string middle initial, string last name, integer with the birth year, birth month, birth day, and maybe the phone number. And you might want other things too, street, city, address, all that kind of stuff. But we're going to keep it simple now and just put these pieces in there. If we set that up into a structure, it looks like this. Struct person, public string first name, string first name. And it will contain the first name variable, a string for middle initial, a string for a last name. We have integers for the birth year, birth month, and birth day. And we have a string for the phone number, all contained within that structure named person. Now, once we have this structure created, we've got some consistency there. So we can then create one or more objects of the structure. For example, I can take person and I can create a customer equals new person. So we have a customer then that will contain the same variables as the person structure. I can also create an employee structure using the same variables as the person structure. So you're creating identical things there. Both employee and customer would contain the same variables. We can access a structure's field using the dot parameter, the dot operator, to assign values to fields. For example, we're creating an employee structure using person. So person employee equals new person. We then can grab the employee.str first name and make it equal to Daffy. Employee str middle initial, make it equal to a D. Same thing with last name, we can make it Duck. And notice that we have the three variables that are integers, the birth month, the birth day, and birth year. And we've defined them as integers back when we created the structure, but we're also seeing it as part of the name here when you start working with it in Hungarian notation. So you can see that value is an integer. And we're making it equal to 12 for the birth month, 5 for the day, and 1945 for the birth year. We then are using the str phone as the phone number for Daffy Duck. And so that completes us filling a single structure employee. To retrieve values from those fields, we can say simply messagebox.show equals employee.str first name plus a space plus employee.str last name. That'll concatenate the first and last name with a space in between the first and last name and put it inside a message box. So very easy to get at those pieces. You can also assign one structure object to another using the assignment equal operator. Customer equals employee. So we're creating a customer structure by simply making it equal to employee. Most of the time, though, you're using structures in conjunction with arrays. And structure objects can be stored in an array. Here we have an example of a constant integer size 5, and we're taking person, the person structure we created, And we're creating a customer array, basically by saying person array, making a customer equal new person with a size of 5, basically with the 5 elements in the array. To access an object in the array, we'll use the subject employee number 2 .str phone. This is going to get at 0, 1, 2, the third phone number in the employee array, and pull that out for us wherever we want to put it. We can also create loops to access the array. For int I equals 0, I is less than the employee length, the length of the array, I++. Then we take the LBX stuff, or basically a list box, and add items.add, and we add the employee, whatever I is, and then we add the last name to it. So this actually will fill the list box with all the last names that we have in our array. Let's take a look at this and see this stuff in action. What I'm going to do is I'm going to attempt to show you how to use a structure in a program. And I'm going to do that by creating some data in here and making, we're going to do it kind of quickly. So we're going to kind of pull a bunch of things that I've got in an example here and lay them on this form. And what I've done here is I've grabbed this stuff right here, and I've got a first name, middle, last name, birth date, phone number, all sitting here, and I've got these text boxes. Now, these particular things right here are simply labels, and they don't have any name in them because I'm not going to use these things in code, so I'm just leaving label 1, label 2, whatever inside there. I do have these text boxes, though, and I've got a text box called txt first name, a txt middle, a txt last name, and I've got a text month, txt day, and txt year. And I've got, what I'm using here is a mask text box to contain the phone number. And I'm using the parameters, as you can see down here. I've used the mask right here to set up the phone number as parentheses around the dashes and so on the line. I thought I'd use that as long as we have that in our toolbox. We'll put that thing to use. So that puts these things in place. This means I can grab all those things I want to create in my structure that I want to actually pull in. What I also want to do now is I want to go to my code. So I'm going to jump in here and view the code designer right now. It's got nothing in it. But what I am going to do is I'm going to place in the class form, and I can put this anywhere, I'm going to grab and create the structure for person right in here. So what I've done here is I've placed the person structure using the first name, last name, middle initial, all in strings, and I have the integers set up for in birth, month, day, and year. And I've got the string for the phone number set up in here. So basically I've got the structure set up, and that's the extent of it, and that's all I really need. What I want to do now is I want to be able to take my form and I want to be able to apply things to this and make it happen. So I want to enter things in here and add them. What am I going to add them to? Well, I'd probably like to add them to an array of some kind. So let's go ahead and set up a customer array. So I'm going to jump back in here, and I'm going to write down the bottom here, and I'm going to say person, and I'm going to make it an array, and I'm going to make it a customer, and make it equal to new person, and we'll just make it 5 for now. We could make it any number we want and close that off. And this is going to be an array of customers. I want to have a counter associated with this thing. So I'm going to say int count is equal to 0. And this will simply be a counter. And that's all I need to do. Now, I'm going to need something to tell me where I am on this thing. So I'm actually going to create a customer count area that I can use here. And I'll put a couple labels up here where we can kind of display this information right here. This, again, is a customer count. It's nothing more than a label, label 9. We're not going to use it in code, but we will use this in code, which is called LBL count. And that's going to tell us how many customers we actually have in this thing as we do it. We're also going to need a button that's going to count, going to let us add the customer. So we'll lay that in here someplace, and we'll put this button in place. We'll go in and write the code for this thing. So let's jump in and figure out how we're going to do this. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to be grabbing all the data in the text boxes right here and assigning them to the parameters you're going to see up here, these particular things in our person, what we're going to be calling a customer. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to, first of all, say that I can only do this if the int count is less than 5. I got to watch my array because I'm going to create an array that was 5 long. So I'm going to say if int count is less than 5, and then I'm going to set up my parameters for my structure. And I'm going to say customer int count dot str first name is equal to txt first name dot text. And this basically adds first name. We can then say customer int count dot middle, str middle, is equal to text middle dot text. Add middle. Customer int count dot str last is equal to text last. Customer int count is equal to, or dot rather, dot int birth month. Int birth month is equal to int dot parse and be txt month dot text. Let's move these out a little bit. Add birth month. Just shove these out a little bit more. And then let's fill the rest of these things in. Customer int count dot int. We'll do the day next. Int dot parse day. Add birth day. Customer int count dot int birth year is equal to int dot parse txt year dot text. And then finally, customer int count dot str phone is equal to mtb mass text box phone dot text. Add phone. And at this point, we can now increment our count. Int count is equal to int count plus 1. And that increments the counter. So what that does, that puts all our stuff in place, so we can now add our pieces to it and make that thing work. Now, we're not totally done with this. We basically can bring all this stuff in, add this to the customer, but we still need the final checking in this and what we need to do. So we're going to go ahead and finish this piece. So right after we add this int plus 1 thing, we have ended our if statement, or if less than 5. We want to go through here, and now we want to say that lbl count dot text is equal to int count to string. So we're basically going to display customer count out on the file. We're then going to clear everything off. Txt day dot text is equal to quote quote, and I'm going to say clear input area. Txt month dot text is equal to quote quote. Txt year dot text is equal to quote quote. Txt first name dot text is equal to quote quote. Txt middle is equal to txt last name dot text is equal to quote quote. mtb phone dot text is equal to nothing. Then we're going to take txt first name dot focus, and this is going to position user to first name text box. Then if int count is greater than 4, btn add enable is equal to false. We want to turn it off. Turn off button, add button. And I think I'm going to say, put a comment right in here that if array is full, we want to stop that to go. And that's all we need to do. Now, does this thing work? Do a file save on this all. Let's do a quick run. And there's our little application. We'll put in Daffy Duck. Daffy Duck. We'll give him birthday of 12/5/1945. And we'll just fill his phone number like this. Drop down to add customer. He's there. Petunia P. Pig 11/16/1943. I don't know when these people were born. 333 333 3333. Customer. And Sylvester C, cat. 1, we'll make him a New Year's baby, 1948. Elmer Fudd. 5, 6, 1939. We'll make him older. And this should be our last one. Foghorn L. Leghorn. Yeah, we'll make him 10, 20, 1947. And notice the ad goes blank. You can't see it anymore. What we've done now is we've actually filled an array using a structure to put all these pieces in there. We can't see much though. And we do have our count showing we have 5 in there at this time. So we need a little more work on this thing, I think, if we're going to make this thing very useful. So we might want to add something that's going to list our last names and also put an exit button in here so we got that put in place. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's close this thing off. Let's go to our form. Let's go ahead and add an exit button on here right away. Lay that in here someplace, and let's go ahead and do the code. We have this thing set for button exit, and so we'll just go in there and we'll say / close form this dot close. That's all set to go. Okay, go back to here now. We'd like to put a list box in here, so I'm going to put a list box up over here just so we can kind of see things, and we'll lay it down over here. We'll call it LBX stuff. Nothing special to it. We'll set our fonts up so so you can see it, but that's all we really want. We're just going to put something in there from as we enter things in or as we do it. In fact, let's do this. Let's go ahead and create a label or a button that's going to do that for us. So we'll have something called list the last name. We'll extract the last name from the structure of the array as we go through this process, whenever we want to do it. So that's what we're going to create here. So we're going to end up with a list last, button list last, and we're going to go ahead and write the code for that thing. Now, what do we need to do for that? It's actually pretty straightforward. We'll just jump in here and click on it. And all we want to do is say for int I equals 0, I is less than int count, I plus plus. And inside our loop, we'll simply say LBX stuff dot items dot add, and we're going to add customer sub I dot str last name. And that's going to drag the last name from our customer structure in the array and list it in the list box. That's all it does. So we can jump in here again and go ahead and do a file save of this thing. And let's go through this fairly quickly. We're going to go ahead and say Daffy D duck. Let's not worry about the dates. Let's just pop in some numbers in here. Petunia P pig. Porky P pig. Sylvester C cat. Oops. Oh, they'll take the phone. It's a string. We got one more we put in? I think so. We can pop in Foghorn L Leghorn. And we just then, I don't think we added it. Yeah, we didn't. There it is. Now it's done. I didn't add it last time. So that allows us, now we can't do any more ads. We can certainly play with the text box here. But we can go ahead and list it now. If we hit the list last, it brings in duck, pig, cat, and leghorn. Those 5 things are actually sitting there. And we can actually do it while we're running this thing. So if we end up clearing this thing out, stopping it and running it again, we can say Daffy, D-U-C-K, 12, 5, 1945, 222, 222, 2222, add him, and then go ahead and list it, and it goes into the array just fine. Now, if we want to add another one, we can add Petunia, P, Pig. We'll give her a 12, 7, 1943, 333, 333, 3333. Add that customer. Do our list last. It goes through the array again. I didn't clear the array. I didn't clear the list box. So what it's doing is adding duck and pig now, which I'm added to it, adding it to our list box, which we didn't clear. So that's how you can actually do this thing. Now, the interesting thing is, we can get out of here. We could do something a little different. We could go ahead and use the same structure to add employees. Let's go ahead and format this. Whoa, got went in there too fast there. Go ahead and format this. Horizontal spacing will simply make equal. There it is, popping in there. We'll add this guy, which is going to be add employee. Now, how do we do that? Button add employee. It's fairly straightforward. All we need to do is go into our code here and set up another structure. And we do that by simply saying person array employee equals new person, and we'll make it 5 again. This is an array of employees. And we'll need a counter for that. So we'll set up something called int eCount. And we'll make that equal to 0. And this will be our counter. Employee counter. Now, how do we do this? We've got this thing set up. It's identical to the customer profile. And it looks pretty much the same as what we've got over here. So what we want to do is we actually want to create some code in here. And we also going to need a customer account. We're going to need an employee account. We're going to grab that right away. And we're going to put that in here, which will be labels that much the same that we had before. Let's move them over a little bit. I can format this. I'm just going to kind of leave it the way it is. Again, this is a label that has no label 10, but this is a guy called label eCount. And so it's going to hold our count of our employees as we go through this thing. So all we need to do now is go into here and create our code for adding the employee. How do we do that? We pop in here and create this add employee code here. Then we go up here and we grab everything. And we go Control C and we go Control V. And we make some slight changes here. This is going to be equal to int eCount. So we're going to want to put an E in here. And we're going to want to change this to employee. Now if we grab this, we can pretty much place it in here. This is all set. We're set to go here. Everything good here? Yeah, because we're using the same structure. So we're using str first name, the same text boxes. Nothing gets changed here. It's just basically the structure we're working with. That's the only thing we have to change. The count label, it's going to be eCount. It's going to be equal to eCount. I think those names are correct. Everything else stays the same here. And if eCount is greater than 4, where our positions are, and we want to say our button add. What's the name of this button here? The button is called button add employee. So we're going to want to change that to button add employee and turn that one off. So we can't add any more employees once we hit the 5 counter. That's really the extent of it. File save all. So we're going to go ahead and run this thing. And here it is. It's got all our stuff in it. Whatever we add is going to update our counter. So we're going to add Daffy Duck first. D-U-C-K. And we're going to make him, I think we made him before. We made him 12, 1945, 222, 222, 2222, and we add him as a customer. The customer gets increased. We end up flashing back up here. We're not going to add Sylvester Cat. And he'll be 11/18/1946. And he'll be 888. We're going to add him as an employee. So we'll hit this thing right here. He goes into that structure. Now, if we do a listing of the last names in our array, remember this thing's only set up to look at the customer count. So if I do a list last, it's only going to list Duck. So let's go ahead and add another one in here. We'll add Porky P. Pig, 10/19/1943, 777. And let's add him as an employee. To our list last, only Duck is sitting out there right now. And we have 2 in the employee count. We're now going to go ahead and add something else. We're going to add Sylvester Cat. I don't know if we added him or not before. And we'll add him as a 5/5/1945. We'll add him as a customer. Now we have 2 customers out there. Do our listing of the last. We didn't clear this, so we get Duck and Cat are sitting out there. So we're able to get at the structures and the arrays separately by actually creating 2 arrays, customer and employee, based on a structure of person. Now you can stick these structures anywhere in a class or whatever. The nice thing about it is there's consistency here. For the person, you certainly want to identify certain fields. That means if you have a customer or if you have an employee, you want those same fields being retained. And this allows you to do that by creating a structure and doing it in this particular fashion. So that's pretty much what a structure looks like and how it acts like in a program. And so this is what you need to do. We'll look at more of this as we start to work with applications and put this into place. We can actually take our anything database and put structures in there instead of what we have currently, and make that a more dynamic platform as we go forward. That's it for structures, at least for now. Well, that's structures. You'll find them again in applications when we adapt them to the anything database. But first, we need to cover a few more things as structures. That next piece would be enumerator types. Thanks for watching. Visit the website when you get a chance, and please subscribe to the channel. There's more stuff coming every week. We'll see you in the next video. Take care.